This is the Superman sequel that never happened. Yes, it was pitched. Warner Brothers was interested, and then it vanished. The Henry Cavill sequel that almost was, and could have changed the entire DCEU. Henry Cavill debuted as Superman in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel in 2013, a film that polarized critics but struck a pretty powerful chord with fans who appreciated its grounded tone, raw action, and a Superman torn between two worlds. And of course, who could forget that flying scene from the first teaser trailer that we all saw? It dropped all of our jaws. That wasn't the bright Boy Scout of Christopher Reeve's era. This Kal-El was a man burdened with identity and responsibility. A Man of Steel set up a Superman who would grow, who hadn't yet figured out who he needed to be. The fans waited for a sequel that would showcase that growth, but instead of Man of Steel 2, they got Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice in 2016. So let's talk about Batman v Superman for a second. I mean, we have to, right? Like, we have to. Okay. Directed by Zack Snyder, BVS was a bold experiment, to say the least, bringing two of the most iconic characters in pop culture into direct conflict. It was dark, operatic, and visually stunning, but also narratively extremely divisive. Critics panned it for being overstuffed and overly grim. The infamous Martha scene became meme material overnight. And despite making more than $870 million at the box office, it was seen internally at Warner Brothers as underperforming. It was our first real peek into the Snyderverse, and it didn't go very well. That reaction sent shockwaves through the DC development pipeline. Suddenly, Man of Steel 2 wasn't really a priority anymore. The studio panicked. The DCEU shifted course, and Superman, bizarrely, was sidelined. He came back in Justice League, CGI mustache removal and all. They brought back the "Tell me, do you bleed" line, and everyone cringed, and that was that. Brutal, right? Well, now here's where things could have been different. Zack Snyder had a long-term vision for Superman. In Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was released on HBO Max in 2021 after an unprecedented fan campaign, we saw glimpses of Superman's journey beyond death. He returned, but changed. Wiser, more resolute. With his resurrection came the promise of a stronger moral center. See, Snyder intended to continue that arc in subsequent Justice League films, culminating in Superman resisting the temptations of the anti-life equation and fully embracing hope. That path, from confusion outsider to the beacon of humanity, was the soul of Snyder's Superman saga. And if Man of Steel 2 had happened when it was supposed to, it would have given audiences that fully realized Kal-El. But let's fast forward to the missing piece in all this: Christopher McQuarrie's Man of Steel 2. Coming off the massive success of Mission Impossible Fallout, McQuarrie teamed up with Cavill, and the duo had ideas, real ideas. In fact, McQuarrie has just recently opened up about this unmade Superman sequel while promoting Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And what he revealed, well, it sounds pretty promising. He described the opening scene of the movie as Pixar's up-style montage, a completely wordless sequence that would have explored Superman's emotional foundation. In 5 minutes, the audience would have understood what makes Clark Kent tick and what he fears most and why he makes the choices that he makes. No words, just imagery, just storytelling. Let that sink in. This wasn't going to be another CGI-heavy slugfest. No, McQuarrie wanted to dig into character, into emotion, into truth and hope. He also revealed that he and Cavill were simultaneously developing a Green Lantern project, and their vision was to create a universe-expanding narrative where Superman and Green Lantern would mirror one another, challenge one another, and ultimately save one another. McQuarrie saw Superman and Green Lantern, especially Hal Jordan, as ideological foils. Cavill reportedly had a strong take on this. The contrast between the fearless, cocky Green Lantern and the introspective, reserved Superman was going to be the emotional engine of the film. McQuarrie described it as an amazing universe-expanding resolution, one that would have pushed the DCEU into cosmic territory while still being grounded in character psychology. And here's the kicker: Warner Brothers was interested. McQuarrie says the project was in development shortly after Fallout, but then nothing. After Cavill's brief return in Black Adam, there was hope again. The fandom rallied, McQuarrie was even approached again. It seemed the sequel was back on the table. Then came James Gunn. In late 2022, James Gunn and Peter Safran were appointed heads of DC Studios, and just like that, Cavill was out. McQuarrie's vision was shelved. Gunn, for his part, is rebooting Superman from scratch. His Superman releases on July 11th of 2025, and it's going to focus on a younger Clark Kent balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his Kansas upbringing. It's meant to reintroduce Superman as the heart of the new DCEU, not to be confused with DCE. But while excitement grows for Gunn's film, there's a lingering question. What if Cavill had just gotten his chance? What makes this story so tragic and so powerful is what it represents. Cavill was Superman for an entire generation. He embodied the role with quiet dignity, vulnerability, and strength. McQuarrie's film could have been his defining chapter. It could have resolved the tonal critiques of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. It could have brought the character full circle from alien to symbol, from outcast to inspiration, and we were so close to seeing that transformation on the biggest stage possible. Instead, the role was yanked away from him mid-sentence, and for many fans, that sense of unfinished business will never go away. So let's answer the question. Would McQuarrie's Man of Steel 2 have actually changed everything? Yeah, it probably would have. It would have reshaped the DCEU's tone, grounding it in character-first storytelling. It would have expanded the universe through Green Lantern in a way that was narratively organic, not forced. It would have given Cavill the proper send-off, one that solidified his Superman as definitive. And maybe, most importantly, it would have restored faith in the DCEU. Not just that, in Superman. In the idea that even the most powerful beings need to understand themselves before they can save the world. Instead, it remains a what if, a ghost of the franchise that could have been. So now we wait. We look ahead to Gunn's Superman, we root for it, because we all want the character to thrive, but in the shadows of that optimism lives the echo of a different story. One that would have opened with a silent montage and ended with cosmic redemption. Henry Cavill's Superman deserved that movie, and maybe one day someone will tell that story, even if it's only in our imagination. Until then, it's up to us, the fans, to remember what was lost and to dream of what could have been.